There's a moment in life when you realize you are no longer in control, not of your future, not of your feelings, not even of your own thoughts. For Daniel, that moment came on a cold Thursday night. He sat at his desk, staring at a bright laptop screen, surrounded by unfinished tasks, unanswered emails, and a growing sense that something inside him had quietly fallen apart. He wasn't tired. He wasn't sick. He wasn't unmotivated. He was mentally scattered, unable to hold a single thought for more than a few seconds. He tried to focus, but his mind slipped away like water through open fingers. Every notification dragged him sideways. Every thought pulled him backward. Every distraction swallowed him whole. His attention felt like a broken compass, spinning wildly, unable to point toward anything meaningful. He knew what he had to do. He knew what his life required. But still, he couldn't make his mind obey. That night, Daniel whispered a sentence that would haunt him for weeks. I think I'm losing control of myself. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't have imagined, was that his breakdown would lead him to an ancient secret, a system used by the Shinobi of medieval Japan to train their minds into weapons sharper than steel. A system built not for getting things done, but for survival. Before I show you the exact method Daniel discovered, the method that rebuilt his mind from ashes, tell me one thing. What is the biggest distraction destroying your focus right now? Comment it below. Your answers inspire the videos I create, and seeing your journeys helps me craft these teachings with more precision. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. You don't have to walk this path alone. Now, let's return to Daniel's story. Chapter 1. The day his mind snapped. Daniel's collapse didn't begin dramatically. It began quietly, like a tiny leak inside a ship that eventually sinks the entire vessel. At first, the signs were small. A moment of zoning out during a meeting, a forgotten appointment, a message he meant to reply to, but never did. But slowly, the moments became minutes, the minutes became hours, and the hours became a fog that swallowed entire days. Daniel would wake up determined to fix everything. Today I'll focus, he would say. But by noon he would realize the morning had evaporated, not because he was lazy, but because he couldn't hold his attention steady for more than a few seconds. He wasn't living anymore. He was reacting. Notifications controlled him. Random impulses dictated his actions. His mind jumped from idea to idea like a frightened animal, never resting, never listening, never obeying. His girlfriend noticed it long before he admitted it. She would be telling a story about her day and halfway through she would suddenly stop speaking. Not because she was finished, but because Daniel was gone. Mentally, emotionally, completely gone. His eyes glazed over, staring into a space she couldn't reach. And then in a soft voice that always cut through the noise, she would say, "You're here, but you're not really here." He didn't deny it. He couldn't. At work, things got worse. He had always been sharp, quick-witted, the potential guy. Someone who could solve difficult problems faster than anyone else. But now he couldn't complete even simple tasks. He reread the same paragraph 5 times. He forgot deadlines he had written down. He opened a file, blinked, and somehow ended up scrolling social media without remembering how he got there. He felt like a passenger trapped inside his own skull. His boss tried to be patient, but patience eventually turns into frustration. One afternoon, after yet another mistake, his boss closed the office door and said quietly, "You're talented, Daniel." But talent without attention becomes nothing. The words didn't feel like criticism. They felt like truth. A truth Daniel had been desperately trying to avoid. He walked home that evening with a heaviness in his chest. Not sadness, but the fear that something inside him was slipping away. It wasn't motivation he lacked. It wasn't intelligence. It was control. The ability to direct his mind like a blade instead of being cut by it. And that loss of control was terrifying. He tried everything to fix it. Pomodoro, timers, productivity hacks, meditation apps, cold showers, journaling, blocker extensions, coffee stronger than jet fuel. Each attempt lasted a day or two until the chaos inside him returned stronger than before. Every failure bruised him, and every bruise became another reason to believe he was broken. One night, while staring at a half-finished project, he realized he didn't even remember what he had been thinking a minute earlier. It scared him because for the first time he wondered whether the problem wasn't outside but inside his mind. In desperation, he searched the internet. Why can't I focus anymore? How do I control my mind? Ancient methods for discipline. How did samurai focus? How to rebuild attention? Nothing clicked until one phrase caught his eye. Shinobi Neuro, the mind of the shadow, a mental training system created not for productivity, but for survival. Daniel felt something stir inside him, a small spark in the darkness. He didn't know it yet, but this forgotten Shinobi system would rebuild him from the inside out. Chapter 2. The Hidden Mentor. Daniel didn't know what he expected when he sent that email. Maybe a polite refusal, maybe no response at all, but the reply came within minutes. Short, direct, almost unsettling. If you truly wish to learn the Shinobi mind, come see me this Sunday. No expectations. Come empty. Those last 2 words echoed in Daniel's mind all week. Come empty. How do you come empty when your head is crowded with stress, pressure, and looping thoughts? By the time Sunday came, Daniel wasn't even sure why he was going. Hope, desperation, instinct, maybe all 3. He arrived at the Japanese Cultural Center, a place he had passed many times, but never entered. Inside, everything felt different from the outside world. No noise, no hurry, no rush, just simplicity. He was guided to a garden behind the building where he found an elderly man sitting alone on a wooden bench. This was Master Hayato Ishikawa, a man whose presence felt heavier than his age, not intimidating, but grounded in a way Daniel couldn't describe. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't stand up. He didn't even smile. He simply looked at Daniel, not at him. Through him, Daniel felt exposed, as if the master could see every overwhelmed thought, every half-finished task, every silent frustration. For a full minute, neither spoke. Only the sound of a bamboo fountain echoed through the garden. A steady tap, 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 like a heartbeat. Then Hayato finally said, "Your mind is too loud." Daniel blinked. It wasn't a question. It wasn't a guess. It was a diagnosis. The master gestured to the bench and Daniel sat. "Tell me," Hayato said calmly, "when did your mind stop listening to you?" Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. How do you answer that? How do you explain the silent, gradual collapse of your attention? How do you describe something that has no shape, no edges, no clear beginning? He tried. I get distracted too easily. I can't focus. I can't finish things. My thoughts jump around. I feel like my mind is pulling me in 10 directions. Hayato nodded. "Distraction is not your enemy," he said. "Your attachment to distraction is." Daniel frowned. "What does that even mean?" The master leaned forward slightly. A shinobi could sit in total darkness for hours with loud thoughts screaming inside. But they did not fight the noise. They let it pass, like shadows moving across a wall. Daniel tried to understand. "I want control, complete focus. That's why I'm here." Hayato shook his head gently. "Control is not the beginning. Control is the reward." He tapped the small notebook he had placed between them, the one with unfamiliar Japanese characters. "Before you learn the mind of the shinobi," he said, "you must release the mind you cling to now." Daniel looked down at the notebook. The characters written on it had a calmness to them, as if they weren't symbols, but instructions. Jing Shin Shu, Sign Jutsu, the art of a quiet mind. Hayato placed the notebook in Daniel's hands. "Take this," he said. "It is not a book. It is a mirror. Everything that ruins your focus will appear inside it." Daniel flipped it open. Every page was blank. He looked up. Hayato smiled for the first time. A small, knowing smile. "Before you fill a page, you must learn to empty one." And with that simple instruction, Daniel's shinobi training began. Chapter 3. The first shinobi principle, Kage no Mi. Hayato didn't congratulate Daniel in the way a normal teacher might. There was no applause, no praise, no well done. He simply observed him with those steady, ageless eyes and said, "Now you understand the truth. Focus is not strength. Focus is discipline." Then he added a second sentence that hit Daniel harder, "and discipline is built, not wished for." The stone exercise was only the surface. The real training had just begun. Hayato stood, moved to the far side of the garden, and pointed to a small ink painting mounted on the wooden wall. It depicted a single bamboo stalk against a blank background. "Look at this," Hayato said. "What do you see?" Daniel squinted. "A bamboo stalk." Hayato shook his head. "No, you see your interpretation of it, your memory of bamboo, your concept of bamboo, not the thing itself." Daniel frowned. "What does that have to do with focus?" "Everything," Hayato replied. "A shinobi does not focus on ideas, he focuses on reality." Then he gave Daniel the second part of Kagenomi training, the shadow observation ritual. Hayato instructed him to stare at the bamboo painting again, but this time he had to list every detail aloud. The fibers, the shadow under each leaf, the exact angle of the stalk, the spacing between brushstrokes, the void around the edges, every detail. It felt ridiculous at first, but within minutes, Daniel realized something. His mind couldn't wander when it was anchored to reality, to details, to truth, not imagination. Hayato explained, "Distraction lives in the imaginary world. Focus lives in the present one. Train your eye to see reality, and your mind will follow." Daniel practiced until his voice became tired. By sunset, something shifted inside him. The world felt sharper, clearer, like someone had wiped dust off the glass of his perception. But Hayato warned him, "Clarity is only the first step. Your first real test arrives tomorrow." Daniel had no idea how true that was. Chapter 4. The first failure. Daniel felt like he was sinking. That third day had exposed the exact weakness he feared the most. Not the weakness of distraction, but the weakness of self. He had promised himself he wouldn't slip. He had imagined a perfect discipline arc. 3 days, 5 days, 20 days, linear, flawless progress. But now he sat on Hayato's wooden floor, head lowered, hands clasped tightly to hide the trembling. "Sensei, I failed so fast. I thought I was changing." Hayato poured tea calmly, steam rising like a slow exhale. "Daniel," he said, "look at this cup." Daniel looked. "Do you see perfection?" The cup had a small crack along the rim. A faint golden line filled it, a repaired fracture. Hayato lifted it slightly. "This cup is broken 5 times, he said, "and each time I repaired it, not to hide the break, but to honor it." Hayato placed the cup between them. Your mind is the same. It cracks when pressured, but cracks reveal the structure. Then Hayato leaned closer. Tell me, when you got distracted today, did you enjoy it? Daniel swallowed. No, I hated myself for it. That is the beginning of awakening, Hayato said. A distracted man who does not notice his distraction is lost. A man who sees his distraction is already returning. Daniel looked up. What should I do now? Hayato smiled with calm certainty. You will perform the 60-second drill again tonight. But I already ruined the day. That is why you must return tonight. Hayato tapped the floor twice with a fingertip. A shinobi does not wait for a new day. He reclaims this one. Daniel felt a strange warmth spreading in his chest. A mixture of humility and relief. Hayato continued. Discipline isn't the art of doing things perfectly. It's the art of coming back quickly. He paused. Your speed of return determines your strength. For the first time, Daniel understood. Failure was not proof he was weak. It was proof he had begun the path. And now, Hayato would reveal the next shinobi principle. One that would push Daniel deeper into the shadows of his own mind. Chapter 5. The true reason. Hayato let the silence settle between them. Not as an absence, but as a question. Daniel felt it pressing on him, forcing him to confront something deeper than productivity, goals, deadlines, or morning routines. Hayato finally spoke. Focus is not a skill you train with your eyes, Daniel. It is a skill you train with your identity. He poured more tea for both of them, the sound quiet, rhythmic, almost meditative. When a shinobi sharpened his mind, Hayato continued. He did not ask, how do I focus? He asked, who must I become, so that focus occurs naturally? Daniel felt his throat tighten because he knew who he had become recently. A man drifting through notifications, scrolling, procrastinating, feeling more fragmented every month. Hayato studied him. You said you want focus because you fear becoming someone you don't recognize. Tell me, who did you used to be? Daniel swallowed. Someone who could sit and read for hours. Someone who finished what he started. Someone who didn't get overwhelmed so eyes. And now, Daniel looked down at his own hands. Now I feel like I'm constantly escaping from myself, from my responsibilities, from my own thoughts. Hayato nodded slowly as if expecting that answer. Then hear this, the old master said. Focus is not the ability to concentrate. It is the ability to stay in discomfort, in silence, in confrontation with the self. He paused. Shinobi trained in darkness because darkness reveals the truth. It shows you the parts of yourself you avoid in daylight. Daniel felt a shiver because that was exactly what he had been avoiding. Not noise, not distraction, but himself. Hayato leaned in. Your purpose is not to become productive. Your purpose is to return to the man you lost. Daniel felt warmth rise in his chest, a mixture of grief and awakening. And in that moment he understood. He wasn't fighting distraction. He was fighting the slow death of his identity. And Hayato was about to show him the shinobi method that would force him to face that truth and rebuild himself from the inside out. Chapter 6. The Turning Point. Daniel returned home with a different kind of energy. Not excitement, but intent. He walked into his apartment, looked around, and realized how loud his life had become, even in complete silence. The blinking router lights, the phone vibrating every few minutes, the open tabs on his laptop calling his name, the mental noise humming beneath everything. He remembered Hayato's words. Focus begins the moment you choose what you will ignore. So he began, small. He placed his phone in another room. He turned off every notification except he cleared his desk until it held only a notebook and a pen, and he created a 10-minute window in his day called the Shinobi Zone. No distractions, no multitasking, just breath and presence. The first time he tried it, his mind rebelled, his legs twitched, his chest felt tight, his brain screamed for stimulation. He lasted 47 seconds. The next day he reached 60 seconds, then 90, then 2 minutes. It felt embarrassingly slow, almost childish. But he kept going because every day he noticed something small. His reaction softened. His thoughts didn't jump as violently. Stress didn't explode. It whispered. And for the first time in years, his mind wasn't dragging him around like a dog on a leash. It listened. One evening during his Shinobi Zone, Daniel opened his eyes after a few minutes and felt something he hadn't felt since childhood. Stillness, not emptiness, not boredom, but a grounded, quiet strength. The kind of silence that feels like standing in a forest at night where nothing moves but everything is awake. He realized something profound. He had spent years chasing techniques, but the real transformation came from subtraction, not addition. Removing noise, removing clutter, removing the chaos he had allowed to rule his life. This wasn't productivity. This wasn't discipline. This was the beginning of mastery. And deep down, Daniel knew that Shinobi method wasn't teaching him how to focus. It was teaching him how to return to himself. Chapter 7. The complete Shinobi focus system. Hayato didn't reveal the full system all at once. He waited until Daniel had stumbled, struggled, and tasted the first drops of inner stillness. Only then, under a moonlit sky, with cicadas humming in the distance, Hayato finally spoke the words Daniel had been waiting for. There are 5 pillars, he said. 5 doors that open into one mind. Daniel leaned forward. One cage no me, the shadow eye. The first pillar wasn't about doing, it was about seeing a single object, a single point. 60 to 180 seconds of total immersion, Hayato explained. When the shadow eye strengthens, the world cannot steal your attention. Your mind learns to grip. The world had trained Daniel to scatter his focus. The shadow eye taught him to reclaim it. To Mitsuno, the water breath, slow, deep, rhythmic breathing that calms the storm. Hayato had Daniel sit beside a flowing stream. Listen, the old man said. You must breathe like water, soft, continuous, without force. Within days, Daniel discovered that breathing was the steering wheel of the mind. When the breath softened, thoughts softened. When the breath deepened, awareness deepened. 3 Enso circles. The loop of return. Daniel learned to draw slow ink circles on parchment. Not for art, not for beauty, but for return. You draw, your mind wanders. You return. The system wasn't punishing distraction. It was training recovery. Focus is not staying on the path, Hayato said. Focus is returning to the path quickly. Pokure, no setsu, the darkness ritual. Hayato would blow out the lantern until only faint moonlight filled the room. Train in darkness, he whispered, and the senses sharpen. This practice taught Daniel to rely on internal awareness, not visual stimulation. He could feel his thoughts more clearly, like shapes moving in the dark. 5. Shinobi Kufu, creative discipline. The final pillar wasn't meditation, it was environment design. Removing clutter, removing friction, removing anything that steals energy or attention. The world is built to scatter the mind, Hayato said. A shinobi builds his world to strengthen it. Daniel began redesigning his entire life like a warrior preparing for battle, one small change at a time. And slowly, the fog lifted. The noise faded, and Daniel's mind became something it had never been before, a weapon under his command. Chapter 8. The Legacy. Months later, Daniel walked into work with a calmness that felt unreal. No rushing, no scattered attention, no drowning in mental noise. He sat at his desk, placed both feet firmly on the ground, took one slow shinobi breath, and focused deeply, effortlessly, as if the world had finally stopped screaming. His co-workers noticed the shift first. He wasn't the anxious, fidgeting, overwhelmed guy anymore. He moved slower, but achieved more. He spoke less, but said things that mattered. His presence had become sharp, grounded, almost unshakable. His boss noticed too. Daniel, you've changed, he said one afternoon. You work like someone who can't be distracted. Daniel only smiled because the truth was simple. He had built a mind that obeyed. But the biggest change wasn't external. It was in how Daniel experienced reality. He woke up without the dread that used to sit in his chest. He felt his thoughts instead of being dragged by them. He chose what mattered instead of reacting to everything. He no longer checked his phone 200 times a day. He no longer jumped from task to task like a panicked rat. He no longer needed motivation. Focus had become identity. People asked him the same question again and again. How did you change? What program are you following? Daniel always gave the same answer. I learned to empty my mind before trying to control it, because now he understood something the world never teaches. A full mind is weak. An empty mind is precise. An empty mind is powerful. An empty mind is free. His legacy wasn't his transformation. It was the quiet message he carried everywhere. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your focus. And when you master your mind, you master your life. If you reached the end of this video, you're not here by accident. It means you're searching for something. Clarity, discipline, or the version of yourself you lost along the way. You've seen how Daniel rebuilt his mind using ancient shinobi principles, and you can do the same starting with just 60 seconds a day. So tell me in the comments, what is the first thing you want your focused mind to reclaim? I read every response personally. And if you want more systems like this, subscribe. Your transformation begins now. Walk with honor.